Thank you for that awesome introduction, Ipsida. Yes, it was great. Back in the in-person days when I was a new leader for IXDF, we did have in-person events in the before times, and we've started doing those again. So looking forward to more in the future. And since then, we've grown and have had a lot of great meetings and meetups, and it's just been wonderful to watch everybody grow and get jobs and move on in their careers. So let me just get my controls here. As Ipsida said, my name is Amy Reyes. I'm the UX director for Light and Wonder, which is a casino cross-platform company providing games and the platform structure for casinos. I love it. It's something new every day. If you were with me for my talk in 2021, which it's hard to believe that it's been that long ago, it was a bit different than it's going to be today. So Rachel's going to share a link to that presentation in the chat, but that was more of a general overview. And I got feedback after that in true UX form. I got feedback afterwards saying that people wanted to do a deep dive into one of the frameworks and to have more of a workshop format. And so in interest of listening to the feedback from our friends and the chapter, I went ahead and set this one up to be a workshop. And I'm really looking forward to taking you guys through it. So as Rachel mentioned, and this is what you're all dropping your name in the chat, the framework I'm applying, and even if you've heard of it, maybe you haven't started it yet, I joke that it's my new religion. I'm a big fan of this framework, the 12-week year, and I think it's because as I've grown in leadership and in product, this framework really, and you'll see that in a minute, mirrors what we do as designers, and it mirrors the design process. And it kind of takes that anxiety-inducing panic emotion out of planning for yourself. And so I'm going to actually be raffling off the book and the workbook together. I really did find that the workbook was helpful to just kind of accompany the book. I'm on my third listen of this book. I think it's just fantastic. It is not required that you go out and buy it. So if you're anything like me, you want to know all the things and gather all the information. But this is what I'm going to take you through today in this workshop will be enough for you to just start. And that's really the goal here. So goals. Who has goals? Who has some big, crazy goals that they want to achieve? And maybe you need a little bit of help. Does anybody want to share one of their goals? It's not required, just in the interest of workshop style.
I have this one dream of, hi everyone, I have this one dream where, and I keep visualizing it, I'm essentially working remote off a beach. I live in Chicago, so is everyone, but it's freezing here. So every time I'm just like driving through and it's snowy, like today, I'm just imagining working on the beach. That's my ultimate dream.
Oh, I love that. Okay, I might steal that one too. That does sound fantastic right now.
No, I think this turned off.
Oh, okay.
Oh, hey, Devin. Are you sharing a goal or are you just barging in true Devin?
I just barged in, sorry.
Okay.
So I'm cooking right now, but my goal is trying to make pizza.
That is classic Devin. He's been part of the leadership group for a while and just a wonderful contributor to the community. But he's also always in the middle of making dinner for his family, which we will also get to later as part of this because life's gonna life, right, guys? Does anybody else have a goal to share?
I'm trying to break into UX. I'm a career changer. I come from retail management. I've been working on a portfolio, and I've been thinking about this for a long time. So I'm really excited that I'm actually trying to do it.
Yes, I love it. I love it. My intention for today is that with this framework, it takes some of the ambiguity and vagueness out of what can be very big goals or challenges to tackle. And or if you don't quite have your goals figured out yet, we'll start the process of getting clarity. So I think either way, however you're coming into this, there's really a chance that we're going to set you up for success. And I really hope that you'll follow up with, I knocked my goal out of the park. Mario, I see you appeared. Did you have a goal you want to share before I move on? Or did you just come in? I don't want to put you.
That was me.
Okay.
But I am
Okay.
excited for the tools and knocking my goal out of the park. That sounds great. I appreciate it.
Awesome. That's still going to happen. So thank you both for sharing your goals and for Devin for crashing the party and making us some pizza. Okay.
We have
So
some
let's-
more in the chat. We have funding for a service project. We have leaving academia to enter UX.
Yeah.
We have coming from the mortgage industry to UX.
That's what I love about UX as a profession, is that you can come from really anywhere. And there's so many deep channels that you can get into that you really can carve your own career. And even though we've been UXing for many years, there's still like so much to learn, so much to do. And you know, it's only growing and it's only going to get more interesting, especially as we get into AI and metaverse type stuff. It is going to happen. It's just going to be the long game. So that's really exciting to hear so many people as that's one of their goals. I kind of figured that might be the case. So we'll see some of that coming up. But moving on here. So you'll see from the framework here that it is very similar in the 12-week year to UX. And so the little bubbles below represent our process in UX, right? And the framework that they have, vision, planning, process control, scorekeeping, and time use. If you kind of apply that to our field, you look at discover, define, develop, measure, deliver, and then we iterate, right? So we take some of the fear out of this, we take some of the anxiety out of this just by providing some foundation to work from and some structure to how we approach this. So, and if this has got you thinking, well, this sounds maybe a little too structured, let me tell you right now that your life is more important than any product you will build. So it's important to spend at least as much energy and effort as you would for planning something like a product for your own life. So let's get started with the discover phase. So I hope everybody's got their pen, their notebook, their tablet, whatever you use. I am not choosy. Look at that. Mario's got his. I see it. I saw Ipsida's earlier. That is wonderful. We're going to jump right into the exercises. I am terrible about time because I just want to talk to everybody forever. So Rachel and the team are going to keep me honest here, but I do want to give us time for these exercises. Okay. So the first exercise is, and just a warning up front, I do want to give a trigger warning because when I went through some of these other exercises I'm going to talk about, there were feelings that bubbled up. So goal making and goal planning can be very personal. But basically, we're going to start with an exercise called have, do, and be. So across the top of your page, just like the little dancing example I have here, you're going to write have, do, and be, and then you're going to draw columns for it. And for this exercise, I would like you to turn your brains off. Don't worry about how. Don't start going down the rabbit hole of, chaos. just turn your heart on and look at what you truly want for your experience. This is about your life experience, or the X of you, like the title says. So what would you like to have in your life? One of mine, as an example, I said a full passport. And I also said $36 million. So there's no limit. So you write what you would like to have. And it truly can be anything. This is your life. And, you know, during this workshop, we're going to keep things moving. So I'll give about 5 minutes for this. And I'm just keeping an eye on time. And if anybody has any questions, just shout them out or pop them in the chat, and we will get to them either now or towards the end if we need to come back to it.
Are we doing just 5 minutes on focusing on the half? Column?
Yeah, I was
Okay.
giving you guys a little bit of a start to start writing the halves, but then also we're going to move over to what would you like to do? So thank you for that. That's a good shout. You know, what would you like to do in your life? I had one as simple as delight people on mine, and hopefully I am able to do that throughout my life, make lots of friends. I think the pandemic turned me into a goblin, and I haven't really been the most social person. So yeah, once you think you have a few good halves down, now you'll notice that these aren't really goals. These are just things you want to experience, things you want to have in your experience in your life. And what it is really is, especially for people that struggle with the, what do I want in my life? Which is a lot of times it's me. I can relate to that for sure, because I think I know what I want, but then I start overthinking it and over analyzing it and then going in circles. So I really found this to be a really great exercise to just kind of validate that it's okay to want certain things and certain experiences. The next column, what would you like to do? So again, just things you want to do. And then the last column, who do you want to be? One of mine, as an example, was an awesome mom. Something as simple as interesting. I said fancy on mine too, because I am not the fanciest person. We'll go a few more minutes on this. I'm going to be quiet because I know this can take some thought to come up with what you want to have, do, and be. And I really do encourage that after this workshop is over, you go grab your favorite drink, play some nice soothing music, get into your zone, and just take some time with yourself and really think about what you'd like to have, and don't limit yourself. One of the examples in the book is a house on Mars. That's what you want to have. Like, I can't say that I'd want to live on Mars, but hey, man, whatever, don't limit yourself here. And that's why I said brains off and heart on. We'll do just one more minute, and then I'm going to just kind of give an overview of the other two exercises on here to keep things moving. Anybody want to share any of their examples? And you do not have to. I understand this can be a very personal, private thing, so nobody's required to. I'm not going to call anybody out.
I'll share.
All right.
Hi everyone, I'm Ryan. I want a new bike. My bike's kind of old. I guess that's my have. Wait, that's what I'm
Yeah.
supposed. I want to have a new bike in some time to come because my bike's pretty old and I don't know, I've been biking a lot and it's hurt my knees. So I'm trying to get a new bike, and then also I'm trying to travel more and do more exploring, whether it's go travel to the ocean and go out or go through a forest or something. And I want to be a UX designer, hopefully.
Heck
That's
yeah.
what
Awesome. That's so awesome.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to give us just another minute here and then I'll move on.
Yeah, for have I put, more time and less stress, and then I thought that was too safe. So then I went to welder because I'd really like a welder because I want to do welding, and then I put down spaceship because so I felt, I was getting more ambitious as I went.
I love it. And that's really important, and if you think about, we tie this back to the UX process, right? Or the design process. You never want to edit during the brainstorm, right? The brainstorm is about just going wild and getting all the ideas out there, because when you shut off your brain and you turn on your heart and you just go, you're getting into more subconscious desires that maybe you've been too afraid to express because, your brain's going, well, you have this obligation and this obligation, so that's impossible. And it's just, ever so kindly tell your brain to shut up and let you do the work of being excited about life. And I think, especially during the pandemic, there was a time where just nothing was really, every day felt like the same. And it was like, what is this all for? Where's the excitement? And what do I even care about? And I've done that work and continue to do the work. Like, that's the other part of this is this doesn't stop. So don't just give up on it once and then be like, oh, I tried that once and it didn't work. If you do the work and you apply this process, you're going to find some really cool things happening. Okay. So everybody has a few have do be's listed. What you'll notice now, and what I thought was really interesting, these are not your goals, right? But these are things that you want to experience that can turn into goals. And a good, pardon me, the air is very dry right now. So just give me 1 second. So something you'll notice is if you look in each column and you're starting to see a theme come up, that's probably something that should end up on your final goals list. That should probably be something that you actually do work towards. And I would say definitely continue with the workshop, continue with the exercises after this. But this is the part that was a bit triggering for me. And this is the part that we won't really get into too much depth here today. I will give you a few minutes, but we're going to keep things moving. So the next exercise is really long-term goal setting. And like I said, the reason this was triggering for me was because I did the math and I'm older. And so when I did the math, and I also did the math, if you have kids, I did the math for my son as well. And that was very, very sobering for me. And then the other realization was that, I had come this far in my life and I had never looked that far into my future to try to plan anything or to set a goal for anything. I've never thought 15 years from now, what do I want to have, do, be? Who do I want to be in 15 years? So I've done the math of adding the years. In 5 years, it'll be 2028. And my son will be 21. It's insane. He's 15 now. So that's where I was like, wow, 5 years goes by like that, if you think about it. So the long-term vision or the long-term goal planning is you look at your have, do, be list that you generated And then you think about 15 years from now, do the math, really visualize, and because this is the real, part of it, that is, it gets really sobering and it gets really clear, right? Because your time is marching on, and the time's going to happen whether you plan it or not. And I just had, the realization that, I've put less thought into planning my own life than I have planning road trips and vacations. So it's really important to think about these things and think about what you want your experience to be. And, I hope that, yes, okay, it's very sobering, but I hope it also inspires focused action, because that's what we're trying to get to. One that's a little bit friendlier and less triggering is the 3 years from now activity that you can do after you plan out your 5, 10, 15 years. And what helps too, if you need some prompts or you need some ideas, is to look at these different categories: financial, intellectual, social, lifestyle, spouse or not, health. It's all up to you. Everybody's journey is going to be different. But it does help to put that lens to it and to say, well, in 3 years from now, this is what I'd like in my experience. And the have, do, be list really does provide kind of a clue as to what you should be thinking about. And no shoulds. This is the stuff you want. So you want to be thinking about it. You want it in your life, right? So use those as fuel. And I'll give, again, this is probably one for me, like I said, it was just, there was a lot of feelings that bubbled up with doing the math and looking ahead at my life, and just these realizations that came up. You may have the same, and that's okay. But I'll give you a few minutes if you wanted to jot some goals down, or some things you'd like, or even just to do the math on your own. Nobody has to share their age on this call. So we'll do a couple minutes. Anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. So the second exercise is the long-term vision, and the third exercise is the short-term vision. It does sound like a lot of you had goals coming into this, and that's awesome. The other thing to consider, pardon me, this is, something that I realized when I got all excited doing these exercises and like, my life, yes, I'm going to plan it. I had already said yes to some things. And so that may be what your next 12 weeks looks like. If you already said yes to some freelance, or said yes to, I don't know, a presentation for your local UX chapter for IDF. And I always use the terminology like past me and future me. So past Amy was really excited, around October about all of these opportunities coming in, and it was just yes, yes, yes. And then I took a look at my time and my schedule and the holidays coming up and everything that was happening. It was like, oh yeah, guess I've got my 12 weeks planned already. So just be careful that, yes, do all the goals work and do all this, these really great exercises to get clarity in your life and to define your product, which is you. But also when you kick off your 12-week year, you may be scheduling in some things that you had priorly, committed to, or had prior commitments on. Okay. So let's move on. Like I said, revisit as needed. This will be an ongoing thing, and hopefully you take this away as just something you can always come back to. We're going to get into planning or defining now. So we've got some good ideas. Maybe you came in with some good goals. Maybe these exercises help you clarify them further or come up with new ones. So pick up to 3. And now this is where that caveat comes in. If you already have prior obligations, that may take up to 3 of them. If you are a parent, you may choose 1. If you have a full-time job, I would say pick 2, unless it's, you know, a job that requires very little effort on your part. And then maybe you can, or one of your goals is smaller or fits in kind of with your regular routines. That's fine too. Something that came up for me, you know, when I did this is just that I didn't have the time to necessarily do all of the things I wanted to do in that moment. That doesn't mean they can never happen. It just means that you got to get really clear about your time. So definitely narrow it down, because the next 12 weeks, we're going to get super focused. Okay, so now we're going to define our goals. The next exercise we're going to do is a word mapping exercise. So I don't know, the carnival theme, I have to apologize for it. It just came to me and I was having too much fun. And so, yeah, you do not have to draw little popcorns. You can draw the bubbles for the word mapping. I'm sure we've all done this exercise before. I gave the example here of my goal, you can see on the popcorn bag, is update my portfolio. If that were my goal, which it is, I just can't do it yet because I've got other obligations in my 12-week year. And I'm in the middle of my 12-week year. I had the brilliant idea to start mine December 1st, which I do not recommend. But it was good that I did, because nothing like clarity to ring in the new year of how much little time you have left to actually achieve your goals. So for this one, right, update my portfolio, I think, has been on my list of to-dos for, and I think there's probably other people that may be able to relate to this on the call, has been on my to-do list for like 3 or 4 years, maybe longer. It's just one of those things, especially nowadays, where you can't just put pretty pictures up there. You have to have your case studies, and you have to have, you know, different research applied, and you have to gather all that material. And sometimes, you know, you may not either be able to share it if the product's not live yet, or, you know, maybe it's password protected. But anyway, it's been on the list for a while. So I think in one of my 12-week years this year, I will definitely be focusing my energy towards updating my portfolio. The key thing here, so what you'll do is you'll put your goal down, and you're just going to start mapping ideas about what is needed to get this done, right? To get this over the line. So mine was gathering the work, right? I've since done so many other projects and so many different things. I've got to just write down what the heck I'm doing. Like, a lot of people will jump onto a website and start looking for templates right away, and then they go down the rabbit hole, and that's not your portfolio. Your portfolio is the work you did. So it's really important to gather that up. And then from there, you know, I have collect reference materials, just whatever comes to your mind that is going to be helping you to achieve this, or the steps start to come up here. So this example here is just one, but yours is obviously going to look a lot different depending on your goal. So for this workshop, I encourage you to just focus on the one, because you might have like several goals, but I would encourage you to focus on the one that's speaking to you the most. and start to word map out tactics that are going to be needed to get this goal done.
Put some sour cream and some what?
I'll give you guys just a few more minutes to finish that up. Is anybody stuck? Does anybody need some ideas for their goal that they're going to focus on? Hopefully you're starting to get some clarity as to what's needed to complete your goal. Okay. Like I said, these are meant to be activities that you can revisit. I would say definitely take this weekend and do just that, you know. Okay, so as you can see from your, hopefully your word map that you got at least started, that these are not quite our tactics yet, right? They don't have the proper structure that is going to allow us to have clarity. And the reason this is going to be important, because it absolutely matters, is because during the week, because when you do a 12-week year, each week is a month. So week 1 is January, week 2 is February. You are just moving along. And if you don't have absolute clarity, when you get to that point on your calendar in the week to where you don't have to think about it, you just sit down and do the tactic that you had planned, your brain's going to come up with every excuse in the book. It's going to get confused. You're going to end up scrolling on Reddit for an hour instead, and then your time block is gone, and now you've got to rush about the rest of your day. So we're going to get really clear here and write these tactics properly. Okay, so the rules, there's a few rules here. So high level, these rules, they are going to need to be specific and measurable, so no ambiguity. Be very clear on what it is and what the tactic will be. They need to be positive. So instead of, this is a terrible example, but instead of don't stink, you're gonna put take a shower every day. It's written in a positive way. So don't put any negatives in it, as in like what I'm not gonna do, switch it to what I will do. The other rule here is going to be to stretch, but not too much, right? You don't want it to be a tactic where, oh, I don't really know how to do this, so I've got to do 12 things to get to this tactic to be even able to do it. You want it to be something that's a stretch for you, because otherwise that's just business as usual. But you also don't want it to be so big that, you know, you've never done it before and week one is like, do this thing. Like, so unpack it. If it does have those steps, you may not achieve it within your first 12-week year. But the beauty is these keep happening. So you have a chance to iterate, right? So if you need to learn a big new skill for something, then maybe, and that's your goal that you're going to focus on, maybe the first 12 weeks, you're generating tactics in order to gain that skill so you can move on in your next 12 weeks or a future 12 weeks. One of the mistakes I made when I first started doing this was not doing this. I did not get clear with my tactics. I thought I had good tactics. I thought I had a good goal, but I didn't unravel them enough, and they were kind of all lumped together. And then when that week came due, I didn't have the clarity to say, this is exactly what I need to do. So keep unpacking it until it's something that fits within a time frame. The other thing is be accountable. Okay. Nobody can hold you accountable but yourself. And accountability gets a bad rap. Accountability is not consequence. I think just in general in our society, we hear, you know, this person needs to be held accountable. A1, you can't hold anybody accountable. A2, it is not consequence. Accountable is ownership. You're taking ownership for your own life. If you're blaming circumstance or situations or things, you don't have any power. You're taking yourself out of the equation of your own life. Be relentlessly accountable. Take ownership. It is your life. It's nobody else's. Nobody's coming to save you. And there are no adults here. So be accountable, hold yourself accountable, because you're the only person who can. And this last part fits in nicely with that. Have a deadline. Nothing gathers clarity like a deadline. I know for this particular presentation, this was one of the things in my 12-week year that I will get to check off now. There's no other time, right? It's not like I was going to push it or drop the ball. I came here to help you guys deliver and do this awesome workshop so you guys can go knock your own goals out of the park. So these are just the core rules that you have to have. So as you're looking at your word map, let's look at the structure now. Okay. So let me see if I can just pop. Let me just hide this real quick. There we go. So a well-written tactic. So you look at your big word bubble. A1, you probably, to achieve the goal you're setting out to do, you probably don't need to do everything you wrote down in your word map. That's probably not required. So think about, you know, as in design, less is more. Think about the least amount of things that you can do to achieve your goal. You can always iterate, go back to it, hone it, but what is your MVP for this goal? What can you get done, right? So the first thing you're going to want to do as you look at your tactics is to put an action in front, put a verb, right? Let me just put this back so I don't see that happening. Hang on. There we go. Sorry, it was just a little distracting. When you put an action in front of it, it tells you exactly, tells your brain exactly what you need to do in that circumstance. So the other piece, right, that we looked at was specific and measurable. So obviously in my circus theme, suddenly I have a circus iOS app. For this, you know, portfolio example, this is a project that I'm getting really clear on, right? So I'm going to gather the action. So that means I'm going to collect all the different research, a user journey map, and wireframe. Say that was my part in this project. I'm going to gather all those together, and then I put a deadline to it. So look at your tactics, look at your word bubbles, and you're going to map this out to your 12-week year. And so something that is helpful is literally working your calendar out on paper, and you can write 1 through 12 down one side of the page, and literally just what needs to be done in order. And so for the portfolio example, writing the case studies is probably the number one thing, because once those are done, it's easy to start to populate graphics and format headers and look at templates and all that stuff online. So getting those case studies written is going to be a real key piece to that, right? So write out, depending on your goal and what it is. If you want to work remote at a beach, maybe your job's not remote yet. So maybe you start looking at a list of employers that are allowing both allowing remote work and hiring, right? And then also what beaches. That's a more fun one, I think, especially with all the new snow that we've accumulated. So I'll just give a couple minutes for that, because this starts to get really cool, because it takes something that could be vague or ambiguous, and it's where the rubber meets the road. You're starting to see, this is exactly what I need to do. And so make sure they are a full sentence as well. And this goes back to what I was saying, where your brain is not on your side here. Your brain uses 30% of your energy every single day, and its sole purpose is to keep you from doing anything that's going to require it to use any more than that. So if you've got a well-written tactic that you're very clear on, set up in the week that you're going to do it, it takes the argument out of it, is what it does. But each of these pieces is really important to note, because if you leave one off, and you try to I'm going to skip over that, or I'm not going to do that, it can derail your 12 weeks. And then you'll look and 12 weeks had gone by, and you'll go, how is it May already? Or how is it April already? And you still won't have moved anything forward for your goal. Like, you have to do the work. And so what we're doing by doing this workshop is defining the work. And it should excite you. It should be something you're looking forward to. And if it's not, then maybe it's less of a goal and more of an obligation. So it should be exciting to you. Now, we can argue the portfolio thing. I get it, but find a way to, by breaking it down into these smaller pieces, it becomes less of this, oh, I should update my portfolio vague kind of reference or notion. And you're like, this week, I scheduled a meeting with a photographer, and I'm going to have a new headshot taken because you needed one. Like, whatever you need to do to update your portfolio, having those tactics very specific, very clear, and then we'll get to it in a minute, scheduled on the calendar, is going to make the difference between whether this gets done or not. So I'm going to keep things moving, just in the interest of time here. But make sure the tactic A1, you're using as little tactics as possible to achieve your goal. So MVP style, because you can always go back if you need to. But then, the other thing is having those full sentence, well-written tactics that tell you exactly down to the wire what you need to do. And if you do need to unpack it, make sure you do, right? If there's multiple steps that are involved, because one of the rules is, like, your tactic for the week can't involve a whole bunch of pre-work that you need to do. that's going to blow up your whole week and probably 4 months of your 12-week year, right? So make sure it's all clear and it's all unpacked. And you may realize, oh, wow, this is going to take a couple of these years within the year. But I promise you, if you do the works and you work the process here, you will achieve it. It may not be in year 1 of this year, but it'll be soon enough, and you'll get it. You'll still check that box because the time's going to move on without you regardless. Okay, so process control. These are the things that are going to keep you on track as you're working through this. You want to plan your week. This has become my favorite ritual. I have to do it on Sunday evening because my team is in Athens and their day is ending as mine is beginning on Monday. So I don't have time to have a, Zen morning and look ahead for my week and plan it all out. So I have a Zen Sunday evening and I look ahead at my week. I block my time. I schedule it. And I gotta say, it has taken away the Sunday evening anxiety. I don't have that anymore. It's now a ritual that I look forward to. I actually have it scheduled into my Sunday evening. And if that makes me sound like a big lame nerd, I'm fine with that because I truly enjoy my ritual. I usually will have some nice piano music playing because that's what I like to listen to when I'm getting into a peaceful state. I look ahead at any meetings. I look ahead at any appointments, or if my son has any appointments, so that I'm not, Wednesday afternoon going, oh we had a ortho appointment or a dentist appointment or whatever it may be that week. I know it already. And I've either planned for it or I've called ahead and been able to cancel it without getting charged. So there's a bonus there for that if you're not able to actually make it work that week. So for your week, there's a couple of pieces to this, right? So Friday, you want to close out your week. You want to set yourself up, set Monday morning you up for success, because Monday morning you is going to be tired. It's the beginning of the week. Monday morning you needs all the help it can get. So if you're working on a project on Friday you close up shop, make sure you write notes for yourself to come into, or, in my case, if you're working from home, to open your notebook and go, this is where I'm focusing. So you don't have to spend a lot of energy there. I love that. But then the part of the framework here, we'll get to this in a minute here, score it, plan it, and own it. So that's the 3 kind of key pieces here. Score it, like I said, we'll get to. Plan it. This part is so important. There are different blocks of time, and I'll get to that in a minute here. But there's 3 different blocks. There's a buffer block, a strategic block, and a breakout block. And in order to move your goal forward, now you can do this for work too, and I've found it so helpful. So I kind of have 2 of these streams going. But you want to get, the buffer blocks can be daily, and those are a half an hour to an hour, depending on how many admin tasks you have, and how often you do need to address emails, and if that's how people are contacting you, or Slack messages. But any of those little, admin tasks that pop up, go onto your buffer block, and those are daily, and sometimes they're twice a day. So you'll want to look at your calendar and you'll want to schedule these buffer blocks in. This is so important to do this. I tried to do the 12-week year without doing this step, and it did not work. And I got to week 6 and I started to spiral, going, why isn't anything done? I barely moved anything forward. And then I looked at my calendar. Show me your calendar. If this is important to you, where is it on your calendar? Get it on there, because otherwise the week's going to go by like a race car, and you're going to be wondering what happened to the 12 weeks that I was trying to own. Definitely do this piece. The strategic block. You can schedule, it's a 3-hour block of time. The strategic block is a 3-hour block of time, and that's for the deep work you need to do to move your goal forward. If it ends up being longer, great, but find a spot on your calendar where you can fit that 3 hour, at least 1 3-hour strategic block. I actually use these for work because when Europe goes offline, my early evening is a nice block of time that I can use to do some deep thinking work for work. So no longer am I, stressed out during the day, not getting the work done, not getting it moved forward, and then working into the evening to come back stressed the next day. Now I use my strategic block and immediately I know what to do. A handy trick here that I absolutely love that I discovered just recently, and maybe you guys already know this and you'll laugh at me, but if you right click on an email, because I know we all get emails that we'd rather not deal with. Obviously, if it takes less than 2 minutes, just handle it. But if it's one that requires your focused effort or a bigger reply, you can right click on it and schedule it as an appointment. And so I've been scheduling emails during my buffer blocks. And so when the buffer blocks come up, yeah, if there's any immediate things I need to get to, I definitely take care of it. But then I have that, that email that I didn't want to deal with. I know this is the time I'm going to deal with it. And my brain has been much more accepting of doing these tasks that I maybe don't want to do. And I just have found that once the buffer block hits it and I see, oh, I've got this scheduled to reply or respond to this email or put brain cells towards this thing that I didn't want to do, it's like magic, I swear. You just handle it. So then the third one is the breakout block. The breakout block is, I know this is going to sound crazy, but all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, right? So you want to have a little bit of fun. Maybe this is taking a class, maybe that's your jam. Maybe it's, heading out to your favorite lunch spot for a long lunch. It's a 3-hour block of time that you can literally do whatever you want. It's meant for fun. So you should have 1 breakout block scheduled a week, and this is another 3-hour block. So that's pretty easy to remember, right? And then for Own It, this is a weekly accountability meeting. That's what the WHAM stands for. And you basically check in, and I have mine scheduled. And if anybody wants to join me, I'm happy to share out an invite. These are not meant to be like lengthy on and on discussions. It's literally just that accountability piece where you say, this is what I got done. This is my score. This is where I'm at. This is what I'm stuck on if you're stuck on something. And it's really meant to be a support system to make sure that you stay on track with your 12-week year. It's a really big, important piece of this. Okay. So let's get into some of this. Now, don't be afraid, but we're going to get to scorekeeping. Now, why, right? If you don't measure it, you don't know where it's at, right? You don't have any way of getting the data. And again, it takes the emotion out of it because it's just data. It's just a simple number that tells you, am I hitting my goal or not? Am I on track to hit my target? Like, we have to do research for our products. We have to understand the metrics behind our products, and we have to measure them. Why not measure our own time and make sure that we're on track? So as part of your weekly plan, now I don't want you to be afraid of the math, but your weekly score. So I just have an example here of just like, say I had like 12, and they're, because of the tiny space, they're not well written, I'll admit that, but I have, my 12 tactics, my well written, they should be tactics. And really, you can't have more than 12 if you think about it. Like if you're like me, I am allowed to pick 1 goal from now on, because I've learned by, having to do 3 goals in a 12-week year, that's too much for the time I have. And you'll see that in a minute. So my one thing, I can't have more than 12 things at all. And so this isn't really like minimum, right? So again, try to shrink it down into as little as possible. But for the interest of, making it super complex, like I like to do, you got your 12-week year, and you can put the dates to this, right? You can put dates, you can make it fancy, you can put it in a spreadsheet, you can literally build this however you want to build it. But you can also just write it down on pen and paper. I just want to be clear that like you don't need big crazy systems to get your goals accomplished. So I've got an example here, week 1 to 12 written out. And again, you can assign the dates to it. Say I had 7 total tactics in my math example here, right? And that week I only completed 6 of the tactics. 6 divided by 7 is going to, times 100 is going to give you a percentage for the week. So I hit 86% that week in this example. Now, you might just have one, those are my favorite weeks, one tactic that week that I need to get done. Guess what? 1 divided by 1 times 100, you're at 100% if you can check off that one thing. So you don't have to make it complicated. This math equation is meant to show you, like, yes, you can do complication, but it's really not that big of a deal, right? Of your tasks, of your tactics, how many did you achieve that week? And this goes back to the scoring. So each week you're going to give yourself a score, and you have to be honest. If you're not honest, you can't trust the system. And boy, do we try to lie to ourselves. Like when things aren't going great, it's like, man, there were weeks, like, especially over the holidays. And I did allow myself a pause for the holidays, a 2-week pause, but there's so much leading up to that even the weeks before and after, I was at maybe like 26%. It's like, oh man, these goals aren't going to happen unless I get them on my calendar, start applying the work. But if you're hitting around 82% or higher, you're on track to hit your goal. And these metrics, right? Your tactics are lead metrics. They're going to tell you, are you going to hit your goal or not? And if you're hitting 80%, 82% every week, A1, you're farther than you were before. A2, you're likely going to hit your goal. And if not, if you got that big, 24% week, that's what I did. Normally I would panic and have a big old anxiety party with myself and, berate myself and go down the rabbit hole of why I can never, blah, blah, blah. And this time, instead, I just looked at the data and I was like, why am I not where I need to be for my goals? Why do things keep rolling over? Because it's no fun to watch stuff stack. And I realized, like, oh, I'm literally not doing them. They're not on my calendar. They're not planned for. Again, it goes back to show me your calendar. Show me where on that week are you going to get this done? It sounds so simple. If it's not on your calendar, you're not going to get it done. It's not going to happen. You're going to find something else to do with your time. Trust me, your brain is so good at doing that. It is not on your side when it comes to goals. Okay, so now that we got the scary math portion out for those that are less than, and believe me, like if I can do this math, anybody can do this math. This is very simple math. And again, if you got 2 tactics that week, well, each one's worth 50%, right? What does it take to get to 100? So it is very easy math at the end of the day. Okay. Now we got to this, right? The time use. This part is the most important piece in order for you to actually achieve your goal, right? Everybody still with me? Okay, let's get into it here. Okay. So I'm going to move this down. Get this out of the way. Here we go. All right. So we've all seen the memes, right? Usually they're using Beyonce. Everybody has the same 24 hours. And with all respect to Queen Bey, I call BS on that, right? So another activity we're going to do here is you got to do your math. And even the other memes, it's like they only subtract sleep and work as if we're magically just teleporting places, and it only takes 8 hours total for both of those things to happen. And that's just not how it works. So I did my equation here, and that feels more real to me. Like if I look at my week and you just take a day in your week, because that's the busiest we are, right? We're always tired during the week. There's always a million things happening. The week gets away from us. So we're going to get real with our time now. What's your equation? For me, it's okay. I took 24 hours. In my dreams, I'm getting 8 hours of sleep. That's great. But even if you're not, there's a lot of process around getting to bed. And even if you wake up tossing and turning, those hours still tick by. And so ideally we've got those 8 hours of true sleep, but we all know how that goes. Be honest when you look at your calendar. So this just happens to be a representation of my calendar, and my team jokes that my calendar looks like their worst nightmare. And I can understand that. When I was younger, definitely, I thought routine was my enemy, and I thought it would make me less creative. But as I've gotten older and wiser, I've realized that routine actually gives you the freedom to get things done that you actually want to do. There's a great quote that I'll paraphrase that is basically, be ordinary in your routine so you can be original in your work. And I love that, because if you set up your routine so you do not have to think about it, it's more energy for your brain to use on the really important things that you actually want to do. So the thing you're going to look at here is, when you do look at your calendar, again, if it doesn't work on paper, it's not going to work in practice. So when you write out your calendar, include the weekend, because as you can see, when you block off your actual time, right? So routine plus work plus commute, like what does your morning look like during the week? What are you doing? What time are you getting up? I used to be getting up at like 6:30 after hitting snooze several times to rush out the door, take my son to school, come back. I'm usually in a call by the time I get home, and off to the races with my day, right? So I realized, what do I want to put in my morning routine? How do I want to start my day? Because if you're just starting your day like that, off to the races, it's a beautiful recipe for anxiety. Let me just tell you that right now. If you can't take even 3 minutes to yourself to sit quietly, one minute, let's even shrink it smaller, to meditate, gather your thoughts, set your intentions for the day, then you're just setting yourself up for the stress and anxiety of a day getting away without you. So I encourage you, as part of this, to design your day, design your perfect routine. I gotta say, when I started, and I just started with the 1 minute meditation, I said, okay, I'm going to meditate for 1 minute in the morning. I can give myself that. But then I found that was one of those keystone habits that once I started doing that, well, I upped it to 3. So now I meditate for 3 minutes. And you might not think, oh, 3 minutes. Well, that's not going to do anything. I used to think, oh, I have to meditate for 45 minutes, right? Or 20 minutes, or like these gurus, right? That they're starting their day off with that long of meditation. And you don't need that much. So when I started with 1, it quickly turned to 3. And then I realized, okay, what else helped me? Journaling in the morning helped me. Journaling takes a little while. So I don't put rules of, oh, you have to write 3 pages. I just say, write a page in my journal. And I make sure my journal is small, so it doesn't take me long to fill that page. What else do I want to do? Well, I want to work out, but I don't always have time. So I have an app called 7. It's literally a 7-minute workout. So I've got my routine built. I encourage you to think about what you want in your own routine. What does that look like for you? Maybe it's just as simple as getting up and making yourself a cup of tea or coffee and sitting quietly for a few minutes before the day takes off. Starting your day grounded will make you less anxious, will give you better sense of peace and calm throughout your day. And it was one of the key things that really, I gotta say, squashed my anxiety, was just starting with that 1 to 3 minute meditation in the morning. And again, I just started with 1 minute. Because again, I was waking up at the time I was waking up at 6:30, hitting snooze a bunch of times and then rushing out the door. Now I get up at 5. And that was just, I know it sounds crazy, but it was just a natural transition because I realized I like to do these things. They take this amount of time. Time is finite in my morning before my day starts, because it starts very early. And then what I did here too is look at, okay, what is my evening like? And so you see where I've got the blue is just routine and work. Like life's got work to do, man. You get a lot of chores, a lot of things happening. So as you're blocking off your calendar and you're looking at it, my, 6:30 to 8 really is dinner. That's the one time I get to see my son. It's pretty much the only time we have to spend together is for that dinner time. And I hold that sacred. So what are your sacred rituals that you have every day? So think about that. So you can see now this key up here shows you my blocks of time, right? So once you get done blocking out the must-haves with your routine and work, and things that are just going to naturally take away your time, that goes back to your equation, right? What are you left with? Okay, well, I've got 2 hours. I've got my 5:30 to 6:30 block, and I've got a 7 to 8. Or I'm sorry, an 8 to 9 p.m. block. And you can just draw this up in a notebook. You can put it on your actual calendar, which you need to do anyway at the end of this, but even just quickly sketching it out, like I said, if it doesn't work on paper, you're not going to make it work. You have to honor your time here. So for work, like I said, I'm using the 12-week structure for work as well. So you can see my strategic blocks for work are here, Monday through Thursday, because that's when I have time. Now, people will schedule meetings over this, and I tell them that's fine. My afternoon, you can have some of that time if you need it. But, for the most part, I'm able to do that deep focus work at work, but this is all for work stuff. My buffer blocks, again, is email, Slack messages. I keep them closed. If somebody wants to get a hold of me bad enough, they'll find a way. But these buffer blocks are built into my day to really allow me to get to those nagging, challenging things that bubble up. And then I've got my breakout block, right? And the work one is obviously related to work, but it's still something that has been something I've been wanting to do or something that I'm excited about, like planning things for my team. And if you look at the actual time, like once you block all of your routine and work down, if you look at your actual time, that will feel more real to you. So of those 2 hours, I would like to, I can't say I'm successful every day at this, but I want to be healthier. So working out is really important to me. So one of those hours is going to be spent doing a small routine at the gym. It's not going to be some lengthy 2-hour session, but it's going to be a small routine. So that leaves me with 1 hour. 1 hour in my evenings, and I must admit it's not my best hour. I am not my shiniest at 8 p.m. But it's an hour that I can use. And if I plan it properly, it's an hour that I can use towards achieving my goals. So, an accumulation of those 1 hours in the evenings and my buffer block on the weekend, because I can do a Saturday If I really push, I can do a Saturday, Sunday buffer block, or I mean, what I schedule as strategic blocks, pardon me. This quote free time here is, it has to be planned, because otherwise my weekend will just, I'll get caught up running errands and doing laundry and chores, and it easily eats up the whole day. So unless I block my time and go, okay, from 1:30 until 5:30 or whatever I can afford that day, at least 1:30 to 4:30, right? That's my strategic time, and I'm going to block that off. But you'll note those spaces in your calendar where you can actually afford to block that time out. And that's the reality, right? So forget the memes, forget that everybody has the same 24 hours. That's a crock. Like, we don't all have the same 24 hours. And with respect to that, if you're working multiple jobs or you have multiple children, this calendar starts, or this weekly schedule starts to look a little bit different, right? And if you have children under 4, be very kind to yourself. Those are years you'll never get back, and those are also years that are just, you're in it. So please, if you're in that phase of life or in that season of life, like they say, do give yourself that grace. But also, guys, honor your time. It is not a renewable resource. Look at your week. Plan it out. It does matter. It matters. It makes the world of difference. So if you start from February 1st, and that's where the good news is, right? I asked in my intro to this talk, I asked, does anybody feel like the year got started without them? And the good news is, it's in the descriptor text of this, for this talk, but the good news is that's okay, because you can start the year when it works for you. Ipsita, what's up?
Sorry, just wanted to let you know we're at 10 minutes to 7.
Perfect. And yeah, and so I'm gonna wrap this up real soon. I got just a couple minutes left, and then we will get to questions, and I'll stay on a little bit to chat. But really, thank you, Ipsita. I encourage you all to say, okay, my 12-week year starts on this day, right? And maybe it's February 1st. That's next Wednesday, if you can believe that. Where did January go? Do you want to be saying that all year? Where did this month go? Where did that month go? With this plan, you'll know exactly where it went. So if you start on February 1st and you take this weekend to plan it all out, make it a party, make it a celebration, order your favorite food, make your favorite food, or get your favorite drinks, whatever it may be, celebrate. And it works right in line with the Chinese New Year celebrations as well. It's the new year, like, celebrate your new year, right? If you start on February 1st, your 12-week year will end April 26th. Think about April 26th. Spring, maybe the weather's nicer, I hope. But you could have achieved your goals by then, whatever goal you set out to do. Do you want to wait, or do you want to get started?